listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. I am one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen.
And I am Abigail, the other co-host.
So today we have I guess, anonymous person joining us. We're going to be calling her Rae for this episode. Rae and I went to high school together. I guess, to be more technical about it, I was out in high school, but I guess she wasn't, but apparently everybody knew. I think she would agree with that. So, Rae, let's have you introduce yourself.
Hi. Yeah, as Jacob said, I never officially came out in high school, but I think it was pretty obvious, typical softball player. We all know the stereotype that goes along with being a softball player. I just didn't try to hide it, I guess. Didn't really care. I'm an aspiring writer. My pen name is actually Rae Storm. That's why I chose to come on your guys' wonderful show under that name. There's not really much to know about me, I guess. I've been an avid storyteller since I was a kid. Had a lot of crazy experiences in life. Yeah, I'm really not that interesting of a person, I guess.
Well, I think if you're writing a book, you're probably a pretty interesting person.
Well, maybe a little insane. I've heard you have to be a little crazy to write a fiction story, so we'll just say I'm a little insane, I guess.
Oh, so it's a fiction story. I was thinking it was like a story about your life.
Yeah, no, it's actually dystopian fantasy.
Okay.
Which we can get into that later if we have some time. But because I know I'm sure that's not exactly the story you're here to listen to, and now my cats are destroying things. So sorry about that if you hear some catastrophe behind me.
You're good. We've
No,
all
it's
been there.
all good. So the story that you'll be telling today is a story I know nothing about. I assume it has to do with one of your exes, and apparently it threw you through a loop. So I'll hand it over to you. You can tell your story.
Sounds good. Yeah, it is a story you haven't heard. Mostly just because we haven't spoken since high school, really. But so I'm not gonna share her real name. Obviously, I'm trying to stay anonymous here. I don't want people to listen and put two and two together. So we will call her Jane, for
Okay.
lack of a better term, lack of a better name. Um, we actually met at work. It's gonna sound so bad. I was her boss. Um,
Ooh.
we worked for a fast food chain, without giving away too much. I was an assistant manager. She was a manager. We started talking a little here and there, and then it grew into more of a relationship. To be honest, Jacob, and I don't know if you knew this, but I actually didn't date anybody in high school. I mean, you knew it was slim pickings at our high school, especially
Right.
if you were gay. So obviously, I didn't date anybody in high school, and it was actually my first serious relationship. I think she was 3, 4 years young, 5 years younger than me. She had just gotten out of high school when we started dating, and I was early 20s at the time. And it was just like whirlwind romance. Love bombing, could never spend time apart with each, time apart from each other. And I was head over heels very quickly.
So I think I know exactly who this is. I can't remember her name, but I remember when I did the DoorDash delivery to you when I was in between jobs. I think this was the girl that answered the door. Am I
Most
right?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, most likely. She did spend a lot of time at my house. We didn't move in together right away. Obviously, I mean that was at least the one stereotypical lesbian thing we didn't do. We didn't move in with each other like the first month we were dating. Um, we did
Is
kind
that a
of,
lesbian thing or an everybody thing lately?
I think it might be an everybody thing, but I do know the term U-Haul lesbian. Apparently lesbians are real quick to get married and put a ring on it, even though they don't know the person that well.
I've never heard of that. That's
I've
funny.
never heard of that either. You're teaching me something today.
Hey, we learn something new every day.
If the
Um,
lesbians get married early, then the gays never get married or they have five husbands, right?
Is that
yeah,
only in
so
Utah?
we swing one way or the other, I guess. The lesbians just move too fast, and the gays don't move fast enough. Yeah, I would recommend looking up U-Haul lesbian. It's kind of a funny term. It should be on Urban Dictionary, I would assume. Anyways, we moved in together, and things kind of just like fell apart rather quickly. Um, like the red flags were there, but I was just I had the rose-colored glasses on, you know. It was there were things that she would do or say that I just brushed under the rug because I was happy, and I had it in my mind that, well, I'm not good looking, I'm overweight. I couldn't date anybody in high school, so I'm lucky that somebody thought enough to date me. You know,
Oh my gosh.
my
What were
I
some of those things that she said that you would brush under the rug?
it wasn't any like personal attacks right out of the gate. Um, it was just a lot of arguing over really stupid things. And I can admit I wasn't perfect in the relationship. I had a lot of childhood trauma that I didn't realize I had. Or at least I didn't realize how it affected me until I was in a relationship. Um, Codependency being one of them. But she she smoked weed, which I don't care anymore. But back then, I did have a parent that was a pill popper for the majority of my life, and it caused her to, well, it was my mom. It caused my mom to do a lot of illegal things and put me in positions that were pretty traumatizing for a teenager trying to find their way in the life, much less a teenager that's part of the LGBT community who, is struggling with who I was. I don't, you probably didn't know this either, Jacob. Well, maybe you did, but I actually, my junior year in high school, lived in a homeless shelter. Well, it was a domestic violence shelter, but I lived there for a month with my mom because of the situations she was getting us into.
What? I had no idea.
Yeah. That was what led to me moving in with the family that I lived with that year, was because my mom was pretty much homeless, which made me homeless. So,
Oh my goodness.
the substance abuse was a pretty big trauma and like trigger in my life. And being young, I mean, we all think we have it figured out in our early 20s. Clearly, we don't. And just at that point in time, the her smoking weed was very triggering to me because I didn't know the difference between getting high on pain pills and getting high on marijuana.
Yeah, that would make
Um,
sense.
and that kind of became a point of contention in our relationship. And she did stop for a while, um, which meant the world to me at the time. Looking back, I know I didn't exactly show it. I'm not here to paint myself out to be the bad guy, relate or the good guy. Relationships take two people to work, and I think we both had too many issues really to make it work. But about a year and a half into our relationship, she started smoking again behind my back, and something I never actually caught her doing it. Just something told me she was doing it behind my back, and I asked her about it, and she admitted to it, and then it turned into this, not necessarily I guess an argument, but it did start to sow those seeds of distrust or mistrust. Wow, I call myself a writer. Can't even grammar right. um, it it caused kind of that rift. You know what they say, once trust is broken, it's very unlikely it's ever going to go back to what it was. And just the farther along we went, the fighting would happen more often. Her parents also became a point of contention. Mine weren't really in my life at all because my mom was in prison at the time. Sorry, mom, if you ever listen to this, I'm outing you. So my parents weren't in the picture. Um, Hers were, and I took a lot of issue with the way her parents treated her. And at first, so did she. The level of I I hate the things my parents are doing, like just I guess the shit talking that she would do, about her parents. And I'm a very protective person, especially about those that I care about. And seeing the emotional abuse that she would take from her dad in particular, it made me very protective. And it did get to the point where I had a hard time being around her family because I would get so angry, and it would just start a fight because I guess she didn't like that I was being protective. I
What were some of the things that this family was doing to her?
Well, before she had moved in with me, she had gone home after hanging out with me one night, and her dad was waiting for her at the top of the stairs. And the second she walked in the door, he was throwing things, screaming at her to get the F out of his house. And she was gonna just leave. And her mom was at the top of the stairs too, crying, begging her not to leave. And he had a very frequent history of threatening to unalive himself.
Okay.
And that, as I've learned over time, that's just a form of emotional abuse. It's a very narcissistic thing to do. Most of the time it feels like those people don't ever actually intend to unalive themselves. They do it just to get control of the people they care about, or well, I air quotes around care about. And just the way he would talk to her and even to the rest of the family. I don't have a tolerance for bullshit from people, and my bullshit radar went off real bad with him. So it just, I know they say, most people don't like their in-laws, but I he made it go to a whole nother level. So there was just a lot of things like, and I want to be careful about how much I share because I also don't really want her to possibly hear this and come after me at some point because she's pissed I'm airing her dirty laundry. Because I, funny story, I actually had to continue to work with her for 2 years after she dumped me. So
Oh, I bet that was super duper fun for you.
that was miserable. But I make good money at my job, so I sacrificed my mental well-being for financial stability because, the economy is just wonderful right now. But anyway, that was me jumping ahead. I apologize for that. We were together. I forgot to mention we got it. We did kind of turn into U-Haul lesbians because we moved in together after 6 months, and that was about a month later we got engaged.
Oh my
I,
God.
yeah, I was a naive kid. I thought she was the one. I went out and spent $1,600 on a ring, which at the time was a lot of money for me.
That
I know.
is a lot of money, no matter what. It's not even just you.
Yeah.
It kind
Well,
of sounds like you're a 20-year-old Mormon right now.
wow. I think you might have just wow. Was I guess I was acting like a Mormon without realizing it. We're a product of our environment, right?
Yes,
And
we are.
we witnessed plenty of kids we went to school with doing the same exact freaking thing right out of high school. So
Yep.
I've never thought of it that way. Thank you for pointing that out. Now I'm gonna have to talk to my therapist about that one. Um, but no, yeah, I was super happy about the ring. I proposed to her uh by a river out in out in a nice little, I think it was a park. God, I can't remember anymore. Um, that's how much I care about it now. Um, and things were great, and but then looking back now, hindsight's always 2020. And looking back now, it was like pulling teeth to even try to plan the wedding.
I
Like,
was gonna say, was she all in, like super enthused about it, or was she hesitant but just kind of going along with it?
I mean, when she said yes, she was all over it. But then when it came down to like actually trying to plan a wedding, it was like pulling teeth, and I just couldn't get her to talk about it. And she had said, "Oh, like I want a long engagement." And looking back now, if I could do it again, I'd have been like, "Okay, well, how long?" Like we need to talk about these things, not just sit here and I just put a $1,600 rock on your finger. Like I don't want to just sit here and wait. I didn't mind a long engagement, but it was just the looking back, it felt like there was definitely a lack of commitment on her end. I also feel like because even I had a best friend in high school. I'm gonna call her Avery. Um, Jacob, I think yeah, she was a freshman when I was a senior, so you would have gone to school with her for a little bit. Obviously, Avery's not a real name, but when we're done, I can give you her real name and you might remember her. But even she said afterwards, she's like, I always thought it was really weird how she would talk about her hatred of the male reproductive organ. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word either, but I guess if you need to cut it out, I'm sorry. She would always say that she thought penises were disgusting, like almost religiously talking about it. And I'm like, well, I mean, I think they're gross too. I'm gay. Like, I'm a lesbian. If I've liked penises, I'd be with men. Like, I don't know why you feel the need to keep saying it. And again, hindsight's 2020. Looking back, it's like she was more saying, it's like, who are you trying to convince, me or yourself?
Yeah.
Because, and that'll make sense here in a minute. When we got closer to the end of the relationship, again, the writing should have been all over the wall that it was ending. Our sex life was terrible. I know sex isn't the only thing that matters in a relationship, but I mean, when you're young, it is kind of a big, you know, our sex drives are higher when we're younger, right? Like whether people like it or not, it's a pretty big part of a relationship for 90% of people. Like we were not intimate with each other for 6 months, even when I would try or ask or whatever. And every time I felt like rejected because it's like, well, what's wrong with me that you don't want to do that? You're 5 years younger than me. You should have a higher freaking sex drive than I do. Then she started to get secretive with her phone. Like before, it was we had each other's passcodes. We could get in our phones no problem. Then she started hiding her phone from me. Like she would sleep on top of it, would never just like keep it away from me, would always angle the screen away from me. And I didn't notice it 100% at the time because I was to a point too where I was done. I just didn't want to admit it because it was better than being alone. You know, I'm miserable and I don't feel loved. I don't feel like I'm in a relationship. I feel like I just have a roommate that I happen to share a freaking bed with and pay bills with, but I don't feel like I'm in a relationship anymore.
Yeah.
But because of
Looking
my
back, is it better to be alone or better to put up with it?
looking back, it's better to be alone.
Yeah.
Especially if you are in a place where you don't understand your own trauma and the things that you went through and understand your own triggers. Like I said, the codependency was a really big problem for me because for 3 years, we worked together, we lived together, we slept together. We were almost never apart. And the saying, the absence makes the heart grow fonder, I 100% believe in because if you're spending all your time with somebody, you don't have a chance to miss them. And I think that's healthy in a relationship to be apart, to have friends outside of your relationship friend group.
And you grow a lot in your 20s and you know what I mean, or late teens, early 20s. Like you need to kind of alone time to figure all that out as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was something I figured out when she did dump me was I didn't know who I was. I identified and associated myself as I'm this person's partner, but I don't know what I am past that. Now I don't know who I am. So my birthday is in December. She broke up with me on February 28th of 2021, I believe it was. No, 22. Sorry, because it was 3 years ago. And for like a week leading up to that, it was she would barely speak to me, would barely look at me. Like I could tell something was wrong and my anxiety was just so bad because like that traumatized teenager in me with abandonment issues was seeing all those red flags and going, oh shit, something's gonna happen. And then one night I just kept pushing, like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And she wouldn't talk to me, and I finally just said, do you even want to make this work anymore? And she just looked at me and said, no, I don't. And I was taken aback because like she had told me I needed to get into therapy because I had issues to deal with. Now, mind you, for the day after she broke up with me, I was supposed to have my first therapy session. So
Um,
I had done what she needed or what she said she needed from me. Because at first I had to know like I don't want to do therapy. I can't. I'm not ready to face those issues. One thing is like you can't force somebody to go to therapy. They have to be ready themselves to do it. Otherwise, they are going to get nothing out of it.
Do you think she was trying to like set you up? Like she's gonna set you up with a therapy appointment. She was just getting you there and then she was gonna walk.
I think possibly because our lease was actually going to be up in our townhouse at like the end of March is when our lease was going to be up, and we had planned to move in with her parents. We were going to move into their basement, which that was even freaking more stupid than me sticking around when I knew I was done because I disliked her parents so much. But our plan was to try to save money to buy a house because the economy was a lot better right at that point, and we were gonna try to get a house. So I do think she was kind of just waiting, like trying to wait that last month out, and then like she probably was gonna dump me before we even had the chance to move into her parents.
And maybe she was kind of low-key telling you that she was gonna move into her parents' house and get you to break up with her before you got to that phase, you know?
You know, that actually makes sense. Like,
It sounds like she was telling you her whole plan the whole time without actually telling you.
yeah, yeah. And again, hindsight's 2020. I think you're 100% right. You know, the writing was on the wall. I was just too naive to notice. Um, but I still remember that night very vividly because I just asked her, I was like, well, look, like I'm going to therapy. I'm doing what you said you needed me to do. Like, why now? And she said, well, it's too little, too late. And I love you, but I'm not in like I love you and I'm always going to love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore.
Mm.
Looking back, I also remember like a week before she dumped me, we were on our way to work and her phone had connected to my car when we were heading to work, and she had been listening to a podcast that I think are you guys either one of you guys familiar with the show Vanderpump Rules?
No, sorry.
No.
So it's like a reality. The only reason I know is because of her. She was like obsessively watching it before we broke up. It's like a reality, like kind of almost reminds me of like the Desperate Housewives franchise type of thing. And she'd been listening to a podcast that I think one of the people from that show did, and it was I think the title literally was something like how to break up with someone.
Of course it was.
And I remember her panicking when it connected to my car, and I was kind of just staring at her like, what the hell was that? And again, like the signs were all over the place. I was just too freaking naive to even notice. Because then a week later it was, oh, I love you and I'm always going to, but I'm not in love with you anymore. That just felt like scripted, and it's very much like oh, it's not me, it's not you, it's me, the typical cliche breakup line. I I'm not ashamed to admit I completely fell apart. After talking to my therapist, she said it was actually a normal, like it triggered some trauma in me that I had a complete come apart. I was on my hands and knees begging her not to leave. And again, looking back, I will never do that again. Like that, I will never sink that low to beg somebody to love me
So in
because
a way, are you kind of okay that it happened? So that like it was like a learning thing that if it never happened to you, you wouldn't have like had these experiences. It wouldn't have made you the person you are. Because now it sounds like you're more confident. You have stronger boundaries. You know what I mean?
oh, absolutely, 100%. I'm totally okay that it happened. Maybe not the way that it happened, but because one of the last things she said to me too was, "You have too many issues to be in a relationship."
Okay, yeah, that one's a little out of pocket.
Yeah, like she knew where to hit to keep me down because we had known each other for 3 years. I mean, it's hard not to know how somebody ticks at that point. And she started dating a man 2 months after she dumped me. And so it just kind of made me realize, like, I don't know that she ever was gay. I think she was using me as a way to get away from her parents and not have to deal with her own issues. Um, which is fine because, after that happened, like, I went very, very low. I was in a very dark place. I didn't eat for 3, 4 days. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink water, nothing. But it helped me to find myself, even in a spiritual sense. Um, I'm actually a pagan. And that whole experience is what, they say when you go through a breakup, people, it's typical for people to like change their hair, right? I like changed my entire being from this breakup. Um, are either of you familiar with tarot cards?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there is if you're familiar enough, I know you probably know this. There's a deck, a card in every tarot deck called the Tower, and the Tower symbolizes unavoidable collapse, destruction, and ruin. And this point in my life is what I, as a tarot reader, now call a tower moment. My life was flipped upside down. It fell completely apart. I started to question who I was, what I was, what I was here to do. And because human beings all want purpose, and I felt like I had no purpose. And somewhere in that darkness, I was able to find and get comfortable with a confident woman that chases her dreams and goes after what she wants. And that's why I'm here now, being able to say I'm publishing a book in 4 months that has taken the 3 years to write. And I don't take bullshit from anybody, or I try not to. There's a few times it slips through, but as Abby said, like, I know how to set boundaries now. And I still haven't gotten in another relationship, but that's just because I'm more focused on the book. I'm a typical Capricorn, and I'm married to my career at this point. So a relationship will come when it's time, but it's yeah, just that relationship, the breakup, it taught me a lot about myself and helped me find me and bring myself home, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I think a lot of things that happen to people in their lives that are really, really bad, it ends up turning out to be for the better because it builds them up to be someone who they want to be. So
Yep.
it's good that was your experience and you didn't let it get you down, at least for long.
Yeah, it was hard for a good while. I mean, I did love her with everything that I was. Um, but I know now it was one-sided. Not saying she never loved me at all, but I don't think that she cared for me the way I cared for her, which is fine. You know, Nothing's ever 50-50, but
And you'd be a psychopath if that never got you down, you know?
yeah, right. Yeah, like I said, I won't lie, like that shit knocked me pretty low for a while. But I had an amazing support system of friends around me, and I've met some amazing people over the last 3 years, and it's life's good. That's the way I look at it. Even when I have bad shit happen, I just try to find the silver lining in it and say, well, what's this trying to teach me? Everything happens to teach us something. So what do I need to learn from this situation?
Yeah, definitely. Well, as always, we always have our good stories on, and this was another one. Is there anything else to it that you would like to add?
No, not to the story itself. I think this is kind of a good way for me to finally bury that, like put that to rest for good. Um, so I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to even talk about it, because I think it was kind of something I needed, to share my story and give hopefully hope to somebody else that's out there that's been through a similar situation, that they can make it through it. Um, if you don't mind, I'd like to plug my book real quick, if that's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so I cannot announce the official release date yet, but it is coming out this summer. It is called Gods of Arcana. It'll be the first book in a series. It is a dystopian fantasy based on a secret society that bases themselves off of the tarot, and they take over the world, basically, starting with the United States. And it's the main character. Well, there's two main characters. One is a soldier in this society, and she learns kind of the dark underbelly of this society that she's been working for. And it's kind of about rebellion, standing up for what's right, standing up against oppression. if you think like Hunger Games and Divergent meets like Percy Jackson type of thing,
Okay.
um, I'm still not great at giving my what do they call that? The pitch. I'm still
Yeah.
not great at that. But like I said, it is a dystopian fantasy about a secret society that bases themselves on the tarot. So,
Great. Can't wait to read it. It sounds interesting.
yeah, so you probably don't even live in Utah anymore, do you?
I do not.
Well, it will be available on Amazon for paperback, ebook. So if you're ever interested, let me know. I'd even be willing to sell it to you. Just like authors actually make more money if you buy it straight from them. So, um, the my friend is actually the publisher. Her publishing company is going to be called Portal Room Press. So just to give her a little bit of a plug there too. But
Great.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, it was great having you on. For our listeners, as always, make sure you subscribe and save. We are streaming anywhere you can get a podcast. And you can follow us on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Romance Unraveled. Until next time.